Hello, everybody. It's Holger Mueller from Constellation Research. It's a too many Friday afternoon. Here with my esteemed friend, colleague, fellow curmudgeon, journalist excellence, John Reed. Hi, John. How are you doing?
Hey, how we doing?
Good. We survived 2 weeks of Vegas back to back, man.
Yeah, we live to tell. We live to tell. We got a few battle scars, but that's normal, right?
Do you hear the ringing of the slot machines in the back of your head?
Yeah, and I still have a memory of a guy that took a nap on my shoulder during my last flight. I let him I let him sleep for a little bit because I felt bad, but
Nice.
but anyway, that's life. That's our life. That's what we do to get y'all these stories. So
Exactly.
hopefully it was worth it. Hopefully you find these recaps entertaining. So
We will very much hope so. And if you don't, let us know how we can make them better. Always constant improvement, lifelong learning. I'm all up for that. No question about this. So, Oracle Cloud World 2024. Huh? Interesting
yeah.
conference always, right?
Indeed, and we should probably issue a disclaimer that this is a really challenging show to like recap
Yes.
because of Oracle's plays across infrastructure and applications and industry, and then throw in that Suite World was happening at the same time. There's a lot to cover. We had a big on the ground team there, and everyone got their steps in. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do our best, but there was a lot of news. I think I opened my email just now from to remind myself that the day one news was like 15 links, and so anyway, there's a lot to talk about. But it was an interesting show for sure, and there were some big surprises, I thought. So
Yeah, big surprise as well. And I mean, Larry, long time ago, said he wants to become the IBM of the 21st century, the company that you have to deal with if you're an enterprise, like where IBM was maybe in the 50s or even earlier. He is pretty damn close to achieve that, right? And this means a lot of information for us to process, a lot of questions from our customers and readers. So let's go with it. What stood out for you? What was the big news from your side?
well, a bunch of stuff kind of jumped out, and obviously on the application side, it's the continuing story of the impact of Gen AI across the Oracle applications portfolio, and then making sense of what all of that means. But obviously, there were some other really big stories. On the infrastructure side, a whole bunch of stuff Oracle is pushing around autonomous database, and then on top of that, and you could add like security and all this stuff to that, and then of course I think when you have Oracle inviting AWS on stage, like that's a big change, man. Like you have to really think about how the market has changed to get these two companies on stage together during a keynote, because it was not that long ago when from the same keynote stage, I'm pretty sure AWS got thrown under the bus. Correct me if I'm wrong. So
there has to be an enemy number one in the Larry Ellison strategy book, right? Sun Tzu, whatever people are saying.
So how would you explain to viewers what do you think changed to create the environment for this type of partnership?
I think the really change was the Microsoft partnership 2 years ago. Yeah, because I mean, Oracle and Microsoft are not really partners either historically, especially from what they partnered on with SQL Server, which was like always the want-to-be competition, like what DB2 used to be, but then DB2 failed. So there was always like Azure DB, whatever scale. There was always the ambition of Microsoft to become the transactional system of record. And that basically flew out the house. And then it was clear that Google would come at some point, not having something transactional similar in that scale. And it was interesting how long AWS would held out with, like, remind everybody, I also go to reInvent, right? And if you see AWS CTO Werner Vogel's keynotes, they're action-packed and things happen, fast flow. And he dedicated almost 50% of his keynote why an enterprise like Amazon cannot operate on old guard, as they used to call it at the time, database, because not designed for being in the cloud with all the benefits. And this way Amazon has Athena. And Athena is a transactional database. And lo and behold, it's customers who bring people together. Back then with Microsoft and Oracle, it was AT&T. We know that, right? Here it is JP Morgan. And they did it the third time. They did it the best way because they had the JP Morgan CIO, CTO, whatever on stage with Larry and Matt Garman about that partnership. And I think it's great because customers win, right? I mean, these enemy front lines about people not getting along in the enterprise software sector, if customers have to buy from both, it's a problem. And it's great to see Oracle being pragmatic about this, and Microsoft, not Microsoft, AWS even be more pragmatic, because I did not see this happening this year. I thought it would happen next year, and there would be enough push from this. But new leadership at AWS, Matt Garman, they did a great job on stage. They didn't scratch each other. They were in a good, positive mode. And like I said, at the end of the day, the customer has to win, because the customer pays the proverbial bills.
Yeah, it's interesting, because one of my most cynical colleagues said, "Oh, this is a big money grab." To talk Oracle and AWS. I said, "Look, I mean, I don't care, because it's still good for customers. Like the point is that we lose some entertainment value, right? Because it's a lot more fun when these companies are shouting barbs at each other and insulting them. But let's face it, that's not good for a customer. Customer not interested in that, really.
Right. Oh my God! I have to get these people at a table to make my automation work in my company.
They can watch like Succession, or maybe go through Game of Thrones again or something, if they really want that. Like they want to hear that these companies are working on their behalf to get the most value out of, because let's face it, like, these are not cheap companies. Dealing with hyperscalers and Oracle, this is not like bargain basement shopping. So you need business value, and that's what these companies are embracing, is like how to like do that, and that's at a combination of like operational efficiency at scale, and also how you build the applications of the future on top of that. And exactly who's going to do that and how that's going to get done is a fascinating question, but you got to have the infrastructure to do it, and it's got to be safe and secure and all of that other stuff.
But what it also means, I always like these milestone historical moments. I mean, John, you've been doing this as long as me, right? I'm not aware that a complete category, and I'm talking about the transactional, high-performance, enterprise, mission-critical systems database category, has collapsed into one single vendor, which is Oracle. And I was counting that the week after the Microsoft announcement, there would be a continued support, momentum press release. Here's a roadmap. Microsoft's not giving up on SQL Server, which they officially haven't done, of course, but there's nothing like this, right? The same thing on the AWS Athena side. You can say, yes, reInvent is coming. I'm sure they will have something, but it didn't happen at the same time. So if I'm an Athena or SQL Server customer who went off Oracle, because there's a problem, people don't like Oracle, right? We can talk about this too. With a lot of pain and working and movement and migration, they're wondering, why did I do this in the first place? Because now I have a situation where I don't have to migrate my database to be in the cloud, use a bunch of the cloud stacks with my transactional data without disrupting anything on these mission-critical transactional systems. So for the customer, this is perfect. And it's good to see that in place with customers and Oracle being pragmatic about it. And I have this one wish. I mean, I don't want to be Larry Ellison, but if I'm working at 80, if I have half as much fun as Larry Ellison had in his keynote on stage on the Cloud World, I'll be a happy 80-year-old one. I don't know how you see that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting role models of being pretty vigorous in the 70s and 80s these days. And that I find them quite humbling, because I hope that I can achieve some semblance of that, whatever it is that I'm doing. Maybe it's slightly different than what I'm doing now, but I hope I can make similar contributions. I think it's interesting because I see it a lot this is a little bit of a detour, but I see a lot of music, because I got sick of a lot of bands touring after their prime. But once you get as old as the Rolling Stones are, much respect. Like, if you're still doing that at some level, like I saw a Metallica show this summer, and they're still operating at a very high level at their age. And I was sitting there saying, like, I want to be that. Like, I want to be the equivalent of that. And I think, give Larry credit, he's still pushing the envelope and still pressing issues. And we've talked about this before, but I think some of these founders are poignantly aware that they need to protect their legacies right now, because there's a whole lot happening that could undermine everything that they're doing. And look, I mean, Larry's aware that Amazon could also go on and duplicate and build upon a lot of the stuff that Oracle does, and maybe do it better, but he's embraced that challenge. And my only thing I would say is that when I do step back, I preferred his keynote last year, because I liked the ambition around what he wanted to do with healthcare. And even though some people, and I understand what they were saying, were like, that was grandiose, that was over the top, that's an impossible thing to unite all the world's healthcare databases. I liked the ambition behind it, and I thought the empathy behind the real world problem there was a really nice side of him, and it felt so much like he was talking to us for an hour, sitting there talking about this stuff. And I think he probably should have recapped a little bit of that this year.
Totally agree.
And not just because we didn't hear anything about it. And I really think he should have tied the two together. And I think one way that he could have done that, Holger, would have been to say, since the last time I talked with you about this, we've made a lot of progress with our healthcare tech platform, but these problems still persist. And some of the problems are human, but some of them are the technology behind it. And now in this keynote, I'm going to talk with you more about that part of it. And that way he could have tied it together better.
I totally agree with you. If anybody's out there listening, Larry, Safra, Deborah Hellinger, whatever, bring John and me in for keynote coaching for Larry. I mean, the guy started using slides for the first time.
Oh, I'm sure he would love. I'm sure Larry would really love to be coached on his keynote. I'm sure that would go over
he's
great.
Waiting for us.
Oh my God!
As soon as this goes out, he's going to wait for us to coach him for his 2025 CloudWorld keynote. No question about it. But back to the thing, like 80-year-olds, 81, right? I'm sure he's going to be there having fun, and we're looking up to that to have half as much fun as we're trying to follow up. I totally agree with you. Best AI keynote, even this year. Nothing replaced it from an overall vision, ambition, what could be done, what can be done, how Oracle's going to address it. I haven't seen anything like that. Much more disappointing this year because it was just the two topics of security, which is the new thing near and dear to his heart, and of course the multi-cloud aspect of that. But the key takeaway is, I mean, Andy Mendelsohn, right? I remember being in Germany, 88, how many years? 36 years ago, reading in the printed Computer Weekly world in German translated how Andy Mendelsohn's talking about the new release of the Oracle database. And back then there was Ingress, there was Informix, SQL Server upcoming, Sybase, right? It wasn't 100% clear at all where this would be going. And him and his team have really created a leadership for transactional databases. And tell me if there's another category, anybody listening, has anybody gotten one category? There might be a dominant player, but somebody else is 15, 20%, might have the future and scratching on the edges. I've never seen something like this in any of the large software categories that are out there.
Yeah. Good and you know, there was a lot of discussion around security and identity. And yes, I understand why Larry was emphasizing that. He also talked about Apex and the low-code platform and
yes,
and how they generate code without security vulnerabilities. And then he talked a lot about autonomous databases and how that's by 2025, basically all their applications are going to be running on it. There was the unfortunately named Zipper, Zero Trust Pack Routing, and analysts had a little bit of a field day with Zipper. That was just too easy to have fun with. But look, I mean, I think, passwords are not a good solution ultimately for identity, but
right,
if I were Larry, I would be a little careful about getting too enthused about biometrics without some respect for the sensitivity around that. It's one thing, to give companies my fingerprint. It's another thing to give them my face.
Yeah.
And I'm not as excited about that as a lot of companies are. I'll give you one example. Like CVS offered me today to replace my password with a fingerprint or a face. Well, I'm going to stick with my password for now for CVS. I don't like Clear. They gives me airport security privileges, and TSA. They can have my face if they want because that's federal security stuff. CVS can't have my face right now. Sorry, not yet. And so I think there needs to be a little more acknowledgement that yes, passwords are tedious, but biometrics have their own set of problems. That's not some panacea. So anyway,
totally agree. It's not as easy as it is, but the convenience is just fantastic, right? I recently signed up for the same. Do I need to or not? I mean, you can pay with your palm at Amazon stores, right, at Whole Foods. And what bugs me, I rarely shop there, but then I get a discount if I'm a Prime member, which I am. And then I have to look it up and scan on my phone and then pay. And now I just put my palm over there. And I mean, you're trading privacy for convenience, but it's true. It works, right? So
yeah. And in many cases I will, especially in my case, I don't think I'm alone in this, that palm and fingerprints are different for me than my face. That's all.
Right.
And part of that is because of deepfake technology and how intimately I've studied that. But I didn't hear enough in Larry's keynote about deepfakes, for example. And if you're going to talk about biometrics, you got to talk about that too. But having said that, like, I thought there was a lot of content there, and he's not wrong for pressing the issue, because we need, like, everything in the enterprise has to be enterprise grade, and a lot of people that don't follow the enterprise space don't realize how important that is. And everything he wants to do with healthcare, security of data is core to that. And so that's sort of the segue that you and I are providing between last year's keynote and this. And I think that's how it connects.
Yeah, no, good point. And there's almost a learning curve, you could think, right? Because security was a big topic. It was all about the possibilities. Now it's like about how hard it is to get this done, right? Which he doesn't say. And Larry's keynotes are always about the solution to a hard problem, and not about the issues around that, like the biometrics, the story, them, right? So, but it's good to be Oracle right now. I mean, look at the stock price, look at the things which are going. What's really going for Oracle, in my view, is they build OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, for databases. Obviously, that's the workload. That's where the autonomous database, where the exascale, where the Exadata machines are running. And it turns out the design point for a database-centric cloud, where you have expensive CPUs, which have to get the data, is pretty nice also for an AI cloud, where you have to get the data to expensive GPUs, right? Not much big of a difference, right? Flexible network. It's the first time that, I mean, it's not a surprise. I was kind of like sleeping at the wheel or at the keyboard as an analyst. I mean, AWS came out 5-6 years ago saying we build our own network, even our own hardware, because the hardware wasn't good enough. We couldn't get from the vendor. One of the big reasons why Cisco is in trouble, right, is because they couldn't sell their hardware to any of the cloud vendors, only to the private data center, which is interesting. And Oracle built their own cloud network infrastructure as well. And that gives them the ability to connect these things in a really, really smooth way. Tremendous advancement there with the first Zeta-scale cluster, right? Oracle's building supercomputers now, which are even out close to someone who's been building supercomputers till we were in high school. HP back then, now HPE, right? So multiple times the frontier capability, which we have in the Livermore labs right across the Bay Area and San Francisco. So super interesting from that part. And then shrinking that footprint, right? So understanding that mission-critical databases have a sovereign cloud requirement, have to run in country because of data residency, or state actors not wanting the data outside of their border of their country, shrinking that footprint, right? Clay McGurrick was in state with 3 fridges behind him, which were not so much smaller than the fridges we have in our kitchen, right? So it's an amazing feat of being able to be so tiny and run this with Oracle Dedicated Cloud everywhere where you want to run this in the world, while benefiting all the updates. So taking the complexity of these enormous cloud stacks, which you couldn't maintain at home in a country, on a small country, on an IT team, managing them automatically out of the Oracle.
Yeah, and your point about Oracle's strong market position, and we haven't even talked about Oracle Fusion applications and also their very maturing NetSuite play as well in the SME mid-market. So that shows you just how much they bring to the table, and especially in the age of AI, where having control of your technical infrastructure that underlies your application is like a huge advantage.
Yes.
But before we talk about applications, let's do the burning questions. What was your burning question or two heading into the show, and what did you find out?
Really, I had no burning question. I was more like on validating, is it really going that well, as I keep hearing from some customers, and looking to try to find the customer which had a concern. And funny, the weekend before, and he's one of the people who's listening, so he'll be listening, I talked to a CIO in the UK and said, Oracle screwed me back in the 90s, and I'm never going to do business with them. So it's interesting how people keep their beefs with Oracle of having an unfavorable licensing, auditing, event experience, and so on there. I think on the flip side, the compellingness of the Oracle stack is going to force a number of those people, which I know at the same time, back into the Oracle arm, right? So it's really validating, like, how far has Oracle gone in apps, how far has that gone on the PaaS side, right? The HeatWave database is a tremendous success story. You mentioned NetSuite, right? So Oracle believes in duality on the SaaS side with the Oracle Fusion Suite and then NetSuite for SMBs. But the same thing on the database side, where HeatWave is a phenomenal success story where an old guard vendor, as Amazon likes to call Oracle, has the R&D capacity with a very small team to out-execute all these nimble, fast, VC-funded cloud databases by providing more capabilities and more value to customers in HeatWave, which is super, super interesting. So it was really more about validation of this and hearing from customers where they are than a burning critical question, because like there is no burning critical question for me. They often come from breaks in the stack and the capability to run different places. I will talk about AI in a moment, I'm sure. We see this two-phase step to AI where people who build on one cloud get the AI from that cloud and are significantly ahead building AI. And we saw that Oracle with Steve Miranda announcing 50 applications at 100. It's so much easier when you have Oracle because you have one way of doing it than when you have to create the abstraction layer to run across multiple clouds, which some of their key competitors on the SaaS side have to do. And they are 6 to 9 to 12 months behind in uptake from that. Yeah. Don't know how you see it. What was your burning question coming in there?
Well, I did have a burning question, and I really wanted to get to it. And I also knew I was going to probably have to cover AI agents. I'm working on a piece on why agents are BS, which is kind of tongue-in-cheek because agents aren't BS. I'm just frustrated with how sort of broadly the term is being used. But Oracle did announce 50 plus role-based AI agents. So the agent conversation rolls on. But what I had on my mind before the conference is I have this burning question around how are enterprise vendors handling customer data movement, and in the case of Oracle, external large language models are in play, and Oracle has a bunch of partners. A lot of people thought they only work with Cohere, but that's not true. They use a bunch of different LLMs based on the purpose that they want to use them for, and so.
Huge user of Meta, Llama.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. And so what I wanted to understand a little better is sort of the fine print. And I keep telling vendors, this is what customers want to understand right now, is like they have a lot of questions about this. And the fine print includes things like what happens to log files. If you do a search on LLMs and log files and what happens to my log files online, what you will learn is that most of these vendors keep log files on most interactions for at least 30 days before they delete them. Well, that might be unacceptable to a lot of Oracle customers. And so I realized that Oracle has handled all of this properly, but I wanted to know how. So anyhow, I got my question answered. I ended up I spoke with Miranda Nash, who's she's a major player in Oracle's AI strategy. And I asked her directly, and it turns out they have solved this problem within the OCI infrastructure because they basically, with their LLM partners, they containerize that information within the context of OCI. And so that means that all of that data movement is handled in the context of the existing OCI customer data framework that they have with customers. So they don't have that problem. But I expected Oracle to have a good answer, and I give them props for getting me that answer. That's the on-the-ground hustle. That's the reason why I get on airplanes, because I tried to do that by email, and it was just very difficult even to explain the question properly and why I was asking it. Get into Vegas, get on the ground, start making some noise, get some answers.
Check in the palazzo, get some bed conference food, get 10,000 steps in, and then comes the eureka moment.
And get some answers, and that's really good. And I hope more vendors will be more and more open about these things, because this is actually like really, really important to customers to understand all of that. And, it's like, yes, look, I mean, there's no one that understands the handling of data and data privacy better than a vendor like Oracle that has long conformed to the standards that, of GDPR and everything else. But the point is, we still want to know how it's being done. Right. And so, we got some really good answers too, in terms of how Oracle trains their own models within their own environments as well. And you and I have debated how much to use large language models versus other models. Fine, we can have that debate. The other really interesting thing was just, continuing to see these unlikely partnerships. We talked about AWS. Then we also had NetSuite announcing integrations with Salesforce. This is a little bit different in the sense that it's not like it's not an agent-to-agent AI partnership yet, but it lays the groundwork for that. But again, I give Oracle credit for this because Oracle has its own, NetSuite's, they do have customer-facing capabilities in there. But, this is the real world, right? That vendors are starting to realize, like, customers don't want to have the conversations around, like, I want to use this solution for this part of my process or whatever process flow. I don't want to hear how difficult it is to connect the dots here. I want to hear that you're allowing me to do that. You can continue to sell me on your stuff if you want, but in the meantime, let me do what I need to do. And I think these announcements are refreshing. And so give Oracle credit for making some of those this time.
I totally agree with you. I mean, a good event for Oracle. Good to be Oracle. I mean, I didn't know the answer for the AI log files. I knew the answer for general log files because Oracle, even Larry, I think his keynote said
Right.
log files are confidential stuff. So we don't keep your log files, and you can run on premise. We'll never look into your log files unless I think it was break glass at the moment, which was like a very figurative, illustrative way of doing this. Unless you tell us, I give you access to this because I'm in deep trouble and I don't care anymore because I can't run my company right now for some reason. So only then temporarily would get access to anything which was the inner workings of any of the Oracle clusters, which is interesting. So it's good for them to do it the same way in AI. It shows how Oracle has a DNA of an infrastructure as a service cloud vendor, right? Because there you don't know who's going to be the winning LLM. Oracle doesn't build their own, which I think is the right move. And it's kind of like the bedrock strategy that you see at Amazon as well, where there's not a large language model available for that. So you can use anything you want and you would like, which pretty much every cloud vendor has gone. And that's good for people sitting in Oracle applications because it means they can also bring their own, right? If I don't like the choices that Steve
Right.
Miranda and team or Miranda and Ash are doing, I can build my own, do it myself, and bring and plug that in. And Oracle will be more than happy to make you pay across the stack for that. But you might have the better model and might have a leg up in the overall AI race, right? So, but it's this integrated working from the user click in the SaaS application all the way down to a chip built on from our Sun Microsystems IP that runs these workloads in a super efficient way, which is interesting. But then what we can't forget, right? I mean, Safra Katz is super frugal when it comes to spending on anything and doing stuff, right? And Oracle would not invest much into capex, right? It would be like around 1 billion for the longest time. And only in the last 2 years or so, like Oracle and Oracle spending, I'm joking, Safra and Larry are spending like drunken sailors on AI, 50% of free cash flow at the tune of 30 billion. And let's put the 30 billion in perspective. Amazon overall with the delivery service spends 60 billion in capex in the year, right? And that's delivery trucks and so on, right? That's nothing to do with their cloud, right? 30 billion from Oracle side, that is showing in terms of their global reach, in terms of their presence and allowing customers to move. And the future looks bright because there's so many Oracle databases around the world that people are still saying, I don't want to move this out of my country in different place. But if I can run my own data center or in the just newly open, fresh, shiny Oracle cloud in my country, hey, I'm going to go for that because it's going to give me the complexity reduction and operational benefits that I was hoping for a long time and couldn't get so far. So very, very good. It's good to be Oracle right now. And
yeah, I think so. And
the camera crept out again. Look at that. That's kind of like a sign that we're talking too long.
But didn't you weren't you able to fix that quickly last time?
Just by closing the session.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I can talk to your like
Talk to my
shining,
avatar, right?
shining avatar for a few minutes.
Yes.
If only we could animate it like using an Oracle AI agent.
Where is AI when we need it, right?
So yeah, so just a couple of points. One interesting some AI details around all of this is that like you said with the log files thing, I think what's interesting about AI is in some cases those log files are useful because they contain some of your recent past interactions, which may be used. And this is not about training the model, but it's still useful to be able to reference those. And for some cases, customers want that as well. Those are all things that they can negotiate with Oracle, I'm sure. It's just more wanting to understand that they can do that within the confines of a private environment. Oracle is one of those companies that isn't spending as much time trying to fine-tune models for every customer as we discussed more recently. They're really relying upon RAG to basically update an LLM query with context, and that doesn't go into the LLM at all. It's just part of the query, so the customer data becomes part of the query, and so that becomes an example of how agents can be used. So Steve Miranda, in my pre-brief with him, I asked him for a good example of one of their agents. He talked about a benefits agent. A customer basically gets all their benefits documentation ingested and then processed however it needs to be. So if an employee has a question about a particular benefits thing, they're going to be able to interact with that. And, again, this gets back to what you and I have talked about recently, which is around document intelligence and why document intelligence is a really, really important part of better enterprise AI. So they had a lot of interesting answers to how they're going to handle that. And these agents have just been announced, so that's not available yet, but they also announced a bunch of generative AI capabilities that are available. And it was super interesting to talk with customers about all of that, which I did. And I mostly heard like good things about customers and the way they're bought into what Oracle is doing. Having said that, there are questions that customers have around how to make this all work in the real world. And it was great to have those conversations too, because this isn't like out of the box, this is going to delight you kind of stuff. This stuff takes time to make it work right.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's hard stuff, and it's good to see the progress and good to see the conversations. Interesting on the SaaS portfolio side, right? I mean, progress everywhere, quickly HCM, all good news, right? More workforce management, scheduling particularly, new payroll approaches, improving the UX, so pretty much what you expect. But the head of CRM, not CRM, of HCM, Chris Leone, is dabbling as the head of manufacturing. And I mean, not that I cover manufacturing, but I know what manufacturing is. And I mean, the boost ahead in 12 months on the manufacturing side is really, really interesting. And it's interesting, right? Because we're in this interesting phase of the two major ERP companies being SAP and Oracle being 10 years apart. And when they started their efforts, right? Oracle started Fusion 2004. SAP started S4HANA 2014. We never had a gap like this. And one of the weaknesses there is SAP's manufacturing right now, which is not so well represented in S4HANA yet. So this might be something where Oracle might be scaling up to something by accelerating the pedal manufacturing. So definitely an area to watch if you're a manufacturing customer. From my perspective, I was really surprised how many more things have come out of the manufacturing team, which seemed to be, frankly, completely changed. I've not seen such an invigoration of a product development team in a long, long time. Yep. So
I know we should probably work towards a wrap because people probably enjoy your video more than your avatar. But
we'll monitor viewership and see if viewership is up. We might be going avatar only, right? So
yeah, right. Good. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm definitely better groomed on that picture and better shaved in the picture than I was before. So
and dude, you look pretty coiffed actually in that photo. I'll say one thing that I didn't like and one thing that I liked.
Please.
The one thing that I didn't like, and this is, by the way, not unique to Oracle. This is kind of part of my sort of stump speech for the fall, is like that I really want to see more transparent conversation with customers around what the AI plans are, because like I said, you don't have to sell AI so hard because customers are very interested and they know they're implicated and they have to have a corporate response to AI in some capacity. So they're paying attention. You don't have to sell them. So give them a lot more specifics. And I had a funny interaction, a discussion with an Oracle employee, a really smart person who, because I said I wish all of the customers could have heard Miranda's press Q&A because there was so much good content in there that got into some of the things I was talking about. And he said, well, isn't that your job? To write about the Q&A. And I said, yeah, of course it's my job. Like I believe in that. That's why I'm here, is to surface that. But I can't do it all. Like I'm just a dude, like I'm doing my best in the world, But anyway, it was a fun conversation and it was a good counterpoint there. And look, he's right. Like there's different roles and part of my job, but at the same time, I think like we could benefit from a little more of that open discussion. And then on the give Oracle credit, something I like thing, I really like, again, I like this pricing where everything is embedded, and Steve Miranda had some really interesting discussions with that in the QA where he was saying things like, look, yeah, because someone was saying, isn't that expensive? And okay, look, like maybe at some point prices will have to be adjusted, but Oracle has maintained that a lot of their database efficiencies with the autonomous DB and their infrastructure allows them to provide Gen AI features and experiences at a more affordable cost because that's all in-house. So that's part of what they say. And then also what Miranda said is he thinks it's going to help them close a lot of deals. So that's the other piece of it is, he thinks he's not only going to get kudos from existing customers, but new customers as well. And I think this gets back to your point you made, because one of Oracle's biggest challenges is probably not so much what they have to offer now, but perhaps reputational stuff from the past. And so anything you can do to build more customer loyalty and satisfaction is good. And since some vendors are trying to monetize those core things, I give Oracle a lot of credit for saying, we're going to delight you as part of your license. Now they have said, which is sensible, that if they build new stuff that's different, that's in addition to the portfolio, they will charge for that. So it's not like everything's going to be a so-called free ride. You pay what you pay for, and Oracle's like not going to be the cheapest product off the shelf. We know that, so they have to prove their value. But I do like their AI pricing approach for now. And that's all subject to change in the future, obviously. But for now, I like what they're doing there.
Yes, keeping it for free, right? So not a bad strategy, right? As long as you can afford it, and again, or it can keep it more free, then let's mention the competitor of SAP and Workday, right? Who don't operate their own cloud, right? For Oracle, this is just spare capacity, billions being spent in GPUs. The only place where you can get NVIDIA GPUs if you want them is in the Oracle cloud right now. Everybody else is maxed out. Some people would be happy to have that overcapacity problem, but that makes it, of course, easier to be generous on the SaaS side while people are figuring out what is the value of the AI. You speak always to a ton of customers, John. Anybody stood out? Anything you might be publishing you want to highlight here? Great story.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting. I can't remember at the moment. I'm on like travel fumes as far as what I have published yet versus what I plan to publish, because I think I referred to a couple of the conversations that I had in brief. But the two that really stood out to me that were really, really interesting in very different ways. And again, like I talked about kind of how with customers, like real world problems are part of the thing. So you have Americal talking with me about how, running, on SaaS at scale, and they're not a small company, made a really huge difference for them when they hit pandemic times, because they were all basically remote work enabled, like with all of their core ERP functions. So that was one like kind of huge benefit, and no one could see that coming, right? But sometimes you get rewarded in cool ways when you're an aggressive adopter of new technologies. So call that a benefit, right? And then hearing about their plans for AI and their interests, but at the same time they were also recovering from a major cyber incident, and so talking with them about that, and and again, like threats, attacks, ransomware, this is real world stuff. And if you're a CIO, job one is that, like, you have to protect against that. And should something like that happen, so much pressure comes on you to show your customers what you're doing about it, how you're going to avoid it happening, and all of this, and coming up with a bulletproof plan to avoid the same mistake. Hey, you're back.
Yeah. I just thought I'd hit the start cam button. My green screen is gone.
Green screen's working
there, actually.
Yeah, the green screen's still there. So I loved hearing about that, and it was interesting because it was interesting to hear the CIO talk about how, like I've maintained, like a better communication plan around incidents is so valuable, and how it evokes compassion from other people. So a lot of their partners, suppliers, customers, when they got transparent communication around it, were like, what can I do? How can I help? Like less of the blame game and more about like, we're in this together, let's figure this out. And I loved hearing those stories, because that's the real world context. And then with Hearst, which is a major media empire, you could say, a really fascinating conversation about AI from a finance angle and what they're going to do with it, how automated some of those core procedures can they be. Some really good back and forth with them around, my questions around, don't you need to make sure that you supervise this stuff before it gets posted to your ledgers and invoices, and some interesting back and forth about that without resolving that completely, because we're still trying to figure these questions out. Like how fully automated do we want to be? How do we make sure to pull humans in the loop to avoid, for example, errors when you have compliance and audits at stake and things like that? So great conversations on the ground that showed me that customers are bought in, as you said, to a nice roadmap from Oracle, but still have a lot of real world questions they have to sort out, which is always the case.
Yeah, which is always the case, but it's great to hear. And nothing's better than customer stories. And for people listening here, I mean, if you want to know the customer stories and put the thumb on what's happening, look at the Genomica reports. I mean, they're always truthfully told stories. The vendors might pick the customers, right? But you guys tell it how it is. So it's always good to see what's really happening in customers. So great work there. Always love to read those or scan those and look at them. Wish I could talk to all those customers, but busy with other things, right? So good. Indeed. What did we forget? What is missing from Oracle? I mean, Oracle will keep rolling on, I think. There's nothing right now Competitor-wise, I mean, they have a unique infrastructure as a service offering. We talked about how they eliminated competitors on the PaaS level. They have the most integrated, best integrated, broadest suite, right? Like one interesting tidbit was, I mean, there's still 3,000 developers in HCM. That's back of a napkin and officially confirmed or not, developers combined on SAP SuccessFactors, Workday, and pick UKG or Dayforce, which don't have 1,000 each, at least what they say and tell. So, I mean, it shows, right? It shows that more things can be done in Oracle HCM, maybe journeys, moving back for competitions and so on, whatever it might be, and more reach, more globalization. And I think it's great that Oracle kept that investment going, because for HCM customers, all about what suite level benefits do I still keep getting as I'm paying you for the subscription. And that has never dribbled or been moved over and weakened in any way of rejiggering resources. You can say Chris Lowen's now managing manufacturing. And one of the things I was thinking, let's see if there's a slowdown on the HCM side. There's no slowdown on the HCM side, so kudos to him to push both those teams forward, right? And it's good to see some other people getting more of a visibility, like Yvette Cameron, who's a strategy, did more things, co-shared the keynote. So I think that's all good to get more people in front of people, in front of customers, and see how the magic is being done right now at Oracle. So it's looking really good for them. And I hate to say that, because I would like to say what's not working well or where they should be looking for, what customers need to be aware of. But right now it's good to be an Oracle customer.
Yeah, I think if Oracle leadership were watching this video, they would and saying, "What did we miss?" They would probably talk about industry, and that's look, we're 40 minutes in. What are we supposed to do? We're going to do like a 3-hour video, but there's a lot going on in industry, right? And Oracle Oracle periodically issues like volumes of feature and news updates, and Oracle believes that their SaaS release timing is really powerful on an industry by industry basis. I think the two things I'm watching the most closely when it comes to industry are manufacturing. The reason I'm watching that is because there's still a bit of a laggard thing going on with major manufacturers fully embracing cloud SaaS technology for operating their mission critical facilities. I totally get why that takes a long time to get the gumption to do that, but there's obviously increasing benefits around the kind of visibility you can get across plants, digital twins, all of that stuff. There's so many reasons for doing it. And a big part of it also is getting those big old machines and old clunky MES systems running all on one infrastructure like Oracle, where ERP and industry is all combined into one visible framework. I think that is the future, but it is going to take time. The other one I'm watching really closely is healthcare, just because healthcare is a great example of massive legacy databases of various kinds that you're not going to get rid of anytime soon. It's one thing to get an MES system in the cloud. It's a whole nother thing to get a patient record database of various kinds that has all kinds of implications for regulatory stuff all across different regions to get that. So I think Oracle's heavy investment in Cerner, they are going to be facing the pain and the opportunity of that more than almost any other vendor. And so the story is still unfolding, but we shall see where they go with it. But I think that's a fascinating one, because look, I mean, healthcare is a massive pain point. I mean, I'm shocked at how much I pay for healthcare, and I feel for all the people, like, I make an okay living, like, and I still feel the pain. Like, I know a lot of people that are working on, one household income, big family. How do you do this? And how can we fix this? And shouldn't there be a solution? And can we create better medicine and better medical experiences for people? And these prescription drug things are insane. Some of the costs of it, like, there's so much problem with this industry, and I'm rooting for all vendors that are trying to take healthcare problems and make them a little more manageable and make them better. So rooting for Oracle there.
Yes, and I agree. The interesting thing is, I was very skeptical of the industry effort, because there's this golden rule in enterprise software: once you move your horizontal, your industries will die. Right, so don't run. Right, so the historic example of that is SAP in the 90s, with like great run on your own industry business unit, building amazing deep capabilities for different industries. But then there was a push to internet architecture, and all folded. Right, were abandoned industry verticals. And this is why I find it so interesting that Mike Cecilia is up there saying things and how they integrate these acquired products, how they're replatforming them with a strategy to the Oracle stack, how they're plugging into the Fusion suite as a horizontal suite. Healthcare, of course, is its own special case due to the Cerner acquisition, which is, I think, more acquisition than Oracle has done combined for everything else, given the time. So it has a priority. But on the flip side, I think it was good last year at Open World. It was all, and then we have to talk about healthcare, right? It was clear that every product team had to do something for healthcare to get there. That wasn't so much the case anymore, because, I mean, even if healthcare is 20% of the economy soon, good or bad, probably bad, it's not 20% of the attendance. And, it shouldn't have that prominent a structure, as important as the problems are that you are. But I think the industry messaging and the industry capabilities and how they're built on the common platform, that's something which has been not solved in the enterprise software history from my perspective. How do you make sure that these extensions, customization, little functionalities don't end up being on dead ends which can't be supported? It may change, because for the first time with the cloud, we're doing things where the technology doesn't matter, right? You might all of a sudden run on Quantum and don't even know it, because your vendor brought it to Quantum and it's having benefits, hopefully, for you, paying for it or not paying for it, like the AI question we touched before. So that's going to be really interesting going forward, how this industry messages, because if Oracle managed to bring that together, their leadership and application is going to be even deeper, because there's literally on all these verticals 10, 15 years of vertical capabilities which have been built into these products, which are so deep that really the competition of Oracle doesn't have the expertise, capabilities, and doesn't have the investment of going there, right? I mean, you see the opposite happening at SAP, where they say we're going out of certain industries. Hospitals, as an example, as a random story here, hospital management solutions aren't happening anymore, because I guess SAP feels the pressure of the investment on the Oracle side, which is rarely said and done, right? So very interesting.
Yeah, though, and I don't want to get into SAP in an Oracle video, but there is an industry cloud emphasis at SAP, and I do think that you need all this stuff. You need it all visible in a end-to-end type of way in the cloud in order to start thinking about what you can do with AI. And that's the industry imperative for the cloud.
Right.
Exactly how that happens remains to be seen for each vendor, in terms of you're not going to do all industries yourself. You're going to need help from partners, and customers are going to hopefully build their own industry apps and capabilities. And like you said, some of it might be differentiated and not something they would want to share or make public to their cohorts. But in other cases, what you're going to see is unlikely alliances in industries where a lot of competitors say, hey, we have a core of pieces that we do want to share. We're seeing that some in automotive now, for example, where, like, let's share some core capabilities and then we'll each build what we need to do separately on top of that. And I think there is more of an imperative in this economy to do more co-opetition than we've ever seen in the past. We see it amongst software vendors. Why wouldn't we see it in industry consortiums as well? And so,
Exactly.
so like you said, it hasn't been resolved, but I feel pretty adamant that ultimately end-to-end visibility is what the future is going to require.
Mm-hmm.
So how we get there, we'll see.
Absolutely right. And we don't want to make an SAP versus Oracle industry video. However, this thought just occurred on me that Oracle has happy industry customers in general, compared to SAP has unhappy industry customers, because they don't know how to make their industry verticals run with S/4HANA. So they're in a very interesting, different, precarious or beneficial situation right now. Just came to my mind.
It depends. Yeah, it depends a little bit. I mean, I think it probably, I would say maybe a little bit of a generalization. I would like to see, a lot more sort of the industry cloud story to SAP needs a lot of work. I would agree with you there, but there's also like a lot of global capabilities that are there, and you can do S/4HANA in a private cloud environment where you can keep a lot of that. This is an Oracle video, so I don't think we need to hash the guts of that out right now. I think the more important takeaway is that the customers are going to expect their enterprise vendors to deliver on all of this, and not just, like you said, the horizontal cloud solution stack doesn't work anymore. You have to have solutions for how the industry components come into play here. And how are you going to do that?
Yes, but I must have AI, John.
Right.
AI is the big killer of industry investment 2023, 24, and probably 25. Because, I mean, if I can get a great AI assistant, automation agent, we might call it what we want, for my finance, for my HR, for my CRM, for my manufacturing. It's going to help me more than this vertical thing on top of that, right? Which needs to leverage on these, right? I can't build a vertical agent without the horizontal capability. So every horizontal technology innovation, AI, pulls back, puts the back burner, moves the developers, moves the talent out of industries.
Yeah, to some extent, but I'm going to make the walk and chew gum argument here. I think vendors of this size that we're discussing can invest in more than one area. I would look at industry as more of a slow burn, but where the common framework comes is the platform. In other words, I might not be able to build out what you want in industry tomorrow, but I sure as hell better make it possible for your trusted partners to do it on a common platform and let them go to town if they want to. Because Correct. Maybe there might be some specialty partners that want to do it. And by the way, a lot of the best AI I've seen this year is focused on industry. I realize it's not as sexy because it can't be capitalized to the same extent as OpenAI and stuff like that. Yeah. But there's a lot of AI industry startups doing some super interesting things right now. And that's because they're combining industry expertise with the sensibilities that we're getting from modern AI. And so I think all of it's to be decided. I mean, it's not, this isn't resolved yet. So, but you're right. People are torn in different directions. And that's what makes the next number of years fascinating, because people are going to place somewhat different bets, and who's going to succeed. Not everyone will. So right. This makes our jobs interesting, at least, right? I mean, we're not bored right now. We're not sitting here saying, gosh, I hope blockchain matures, and when are people going to put on their virtual headsets and start playing in the metaverse? It doesn't matter anymore, Holger.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. We were excited about it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Like we were excited about cloud or big data or It's
amazing what happens when you deliver technology that people actually want to play around with and use. You know, it makes everyone's life so much more interesting, right? You know, it's like, please wear this headset. Like, no, but give me a wristwatch or a phone, and someday maybe we'll be embedding computer chips in our bodies and we'll like that too. I don't know, but
on the funny side now, but I had a thought what you were saying, something which I thought was valuable, which is not so much on the funny side, but it went away. So I thought you distracted me funny. And now it came back. So I want to make sure it's part of this video, which is, the interesting thing, is because of all the investment in the Oracle side. Oracle is the only vendor who on the SaaS side, of course, has a pass, and people are building on Oracle, independent stuff and so on. And you can build stuff on Oracle the whole time. But they have not said, we don't have enough developers. We will not build it. You have to do it by yourself. The Workday 3X by partners and customers. That has not been such a clear message on the Oracle side yet. Or did I miss it? Weird?
No, I haven't heard.
That makes sense that the market leader is the last to fold, right? So AWS was the last one, the cloud, we can neutrally talk it, to provide you on-premise capabilities with Outposts, right? Google started with it as number 3. Microsoft actually started with it, understanding local requirements with Azure Arc now. Google followed quickly, trying to make it better. And then the last people standing was AWS. So you might have seen that the last people standing was saying, no, you have to build your stuff yourself because we can't build it, will be Oracle, because they've built the most and they can build the most because they're investing the most, as we said on the HCM number. So, sorry.
True. I mean, if you ask Oracle about this, they will tell you that the platform is set up for that and that it can happen. But yes, I would say that the messaging around it for sure isn't where it could be. And it'll be interesting to see how that changes, because I don't care how big a vendor you are right now, as you already pointed out, like there's not enough internal development teams to conquer everything that needs to be conquered, especially because like a lot of this is not just duplicating functionality in various ways. It's rethinking how we do business. I mean, so, for example, I want to do this as a subscription. I want this as a service. I want this today. I want, I want to combine a product and a service. Like these older systems weren't built for that stuff. And then you want to attach a conversational agent onto that and have an integrated process between that vendor and another external vendor. Good luck. So yes, there's way too much ground for one vendor to cover. I do want to say one quick thing though, which is, I always grant an exception to one industry around this, which is aerospace and defense. I'm willing to accept that in that particular industry, there's, air gap systems and a different mentality. But whenever I say these broader things about cloud visibility and everything else, I'm always making an exception for an industry like that, or a customer that has so much internal development resources that they can build and monitor their own stacks and stuff. And there are customers like that out there. But I'm just more of a populist when it comes to customer stuff. So I want to reflect the general sentiment, which is most customers don't have time to worry about that stuff. They want to focus on their business. So,
right. Yeah. But this means actually that, spinning on this argument, the customer who's a traditional standard software customer, I want my vendor to build it because I don't have the skills capability of doing this, needs to be an Oracle customer. Whereas the platform message at SAP and Workday is much, much stronger already. Even the readiness of, say, we're retrenching from industry, you have to build yourself, you have to go to partners, which is, I think, that will reach Oracle as well. Right? And Oracle.
Well, let's see if this is, I think, a good note to wrap on.
Yes.
And let's see how Oracle addresses that next year. Do you think any of their executives made it to the end of this video? Because if they did, I don't know. It's hard to say, man, because we've gone on for a while. But if they did, I wonder how they'll address that next year, because maybe we'll have to revisit this and see.
Steve, Clay, Andy, if you're listening, we want to see if it's Apex or Oracle Visual Builder on stage in the keynote next year.
Yeah, like Steve, here's your Easter egg for making it to the end of the video.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's like, yeah, thanks a lot, guys. All right, well, we'll find out next year then. All right.
This was great, John. Thank you. Like you said, Oracle's much harder to cover than just a SaaS vendor with some PaaS stuff in there. Thank you for this always entertaining, great question. Thanks everybody for watching. If we missed something, said something wrong, missed something, correct it, please. We're always there, and we appreciate you watching. Thanks, and stay healthy. Oh, and the sound of the video, the jingle logo doesn't, at least it's there, doesn't play either. Interesting.
I heard the sound.